The blood drained from Ethan Corleone's face as he stared at the empty closet where his wife's clothes should have been. His hands trembled as he pulled out drawer after drawer. Nothing. Not even a hairpin left behind. "Isabella?" His voice cracked through their penthouse apartment. "Isabella!" Only silence answered back. "Hey, beautiful souls, welcome back to Unbroken Truths. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you're watching from. Drop a comment and let me know what corner of the world you're tuning in from. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do me a huge favor and smash it right now, because today's story is going to absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single twist in this incredible journey. 3 hours earlier, Ethan had been on top of the world. The tech mogul who'd built $1 billion empire from nothing had finally made his choice. After months of sneaking around, of stolen kisses in boardroom corners and secret hotel rendezvous, he'd chosen Scarlett Robinson over his wife of 5 years. The decision had felt so right when Scarlett's lips were pressed against his neck, whispering promises of the passionate life they'd build together. Now, standing in the eerie quiet of his home, that confidence felt like poison in his veins. The note on the kitchen counter was worse than any scream could have been. Just 4 words in Isabella's careful handwriting: "You made your choice." Ethan's phone buzzed 17 missed calls to Isabella, all going straight to a disconnected number. His private security team was already mobilizing, but something in his gut told him they wouldn't find her. Isabella Chen wasn't just smart, she was methodical. If she'd planned this disappearance, she'd planned it perfectly, and she was 8 months pregnant with his child. The irony wasn't lost on him. The man who prided himself on controlling every variable in his business life had just lost control of the most important thing in his personal life. As sirens wailed somewhere in the distance and his phone exploded with panicked calls from his security team, one thought hammered through Ethan's skull like a death knell. What if he'd just thrown away the only woman who'd ever truly loved him for a fantasy that was already starting to crumble? The real nightmare was just beginning. What do you think drove Isabella to vanish so completely? Have you ever witnessed betrayal that changed someone's life forever? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more heart-stopping stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. The security footage from 12 hours earlier told the story Ethan wasn't ready to face. There she was, Isabella Chen Corleone, his wife of 5 years, moving through their penthouse with methodical precision. No tears, no desperate phone calls to friends, just cold, calculated efficiency as she packed 2 small suitcases and walked out of their life forever. But Ethan knew the woman on that screen wasn't the real Isabella. The real Isabella was the pediatric surgeon who'd saved his nephew's life 3 years ago. The woman whose gentle hands could perform miracles in an operating room and then come home to massage away his stress headaches. She was the woman who'd turned down a prestigious position at Johns Hopkins to stay in Chicago with him, who'd learned to make his grandmother's lasagna recipe even though she was allergic to tomatoes. The woman who'd been trying to tell him she was pregnant for 3 weeks before he'd finally stopped checking emails long enough to listen. "Sir, we've checked every hotel within a 50-mile radius," his head of security, Marcus Kane, reported from the doorway. "Her credit cards haven't been used since yesterday morning. Her phone's been disconnected. It's like she just vanished." Ethan's hands clenched into fists. Isabella had always been the smartest person in any room, smarter than him, if he was being honest. She graduated from summa cum laude from Northwestern, completed her medical residency in record time, and had a photographic memory that made her legendary in surgical circles. If she wanted to disappear, she had the intelligence and resources to do it properly. But why now? Why after she'd been trying so hard to save their marriage? The answer hit him like a physical blow as he remembered last Tuesday night at the Ritz-Carlton. He'd been there with Scarlett, celebrating the launch of their new AI platform, when Isabella had walked in wearing that green dress he'd bought her for their anniversary. The dress she'd worn hoping to surprise him with a romantic dinner. Instead, she'd found him with his hands all over another woman. The look in Isabella's eyes that night was not anger, not even hurt, just a terrible, quiet acceptance, like she'd finally seen who he really was and was already calculating her next move. "There's something else, sir," Marcus continued, his voice careful. "Dr. Chen Corleone liquidated her personal investment account yesterday, $2.7 million. The bank said she authorized the transfer herself in person. 2.7 million. More than enough to disappear forever." Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from Scarlett. "Baby, where are you? I made dinner reservations at that place you love. Can't wait to start our real life together." For the first time since he'd known her, the sight of Scarlett's message didn't quicken his pulse. Instead, it made his stomach turn. While he'd been playing house with his mistress, his wife, his brilliant, devoted wife carrying his child, had been planning her escape with surgical precision. And the most terrifying part? Deep down, Ethan knew Isabella hadn't just left him. She'd outsmarted him completely. Have you ever made a decision that seemed right in the moment, but destroyed everything that truly mattered? Drop a comment and let me know your story might help someone else who's facing a similar crossroads. And make sure you're subscribed because this is about to get so much more intense. 24 hours later, Ethan's world exploded. He was sitting in his corner office, staring blankly at acquisition reports he couldn't focus on, when his assistant burst through the door without knocking, something Rebecca Martinez had never done in 8 years of working for him. "Sir, you need to see this. Now." Her face was pale as she thrust her tablet toward him. The headline made his blood freeze. "Tech billionaire's pregnant wife missing after husband's public affair." Below it was a photo that made Ethan's knees buckle. Isabella at the Ritz-Carlton, tears streaming down her face, one hand protectively cradling her swollen belly as she watched him kiss Scarlett through the restaurant window. The photographer had captured everything: her devastation, her pregnancy, the wedding ring still gleaming on her finger. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the second photo. Ethan and Scarlett leaving the hotel together, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing. The timestamp showed it was taken just minutes after Isabella had seen them. While his wife had been crying in a parking garage, he'd been planning which penthouse suite to book for the night. "The story went viral an hour ago," Rebecca whispered. "It's on every major news outlet: TMZ, CNN, People magazine." The hospital where Dr. Chen works released a statement saying they're deeply concerned for her welfare and the welfare of her unborn child. Ethan's phone exploded with notifications. Missed calls from his board of directors, text messages from his mother, emails from reporters. But the one that made his hands shake was from an unknown number. "You destroyed the best thing in your life for a woman who's already selling her story to the highest bidder. Isabella deserved better. She still does." A friend, "What do you mean selling her story?" Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. Rebecca's expression grew even more grim. "Sir, there's more. Scarlett Robinson gave an exclusive interview to Entertainment Tonight this morning. It airs tonight." The tablet slipped from Ethan's numb fingers. Scarlett, the woman he'd chosen over his wife, the woman he'd thought loved him, was already cashing in on their affair. While Isabella was missing and possibly in danger, carrying his child, Scarlett was probably sitting in some studio talking about their passionate romance and how she'd saved him from a loveless marriage. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Corleone, Detective Sarah Connor from Chicago PD is here to see you. She says it's about your wife." Detective Connor was nothing like what Ethan expected. Short, steel-eyed, with graying hair pulled back in a severe bun, she looked like someone who'd seen every kind of human ugliness and wasn't impressed by money or power. "Mr. Corleone, when did you last speak with your wife?" 4 days ago. She tried to call me while I was in a meeting. I didn't answer." "And what was the nature of your relationship at the time of her disappearance?" Ethan's throat felt like sandpaper. "We were having problems." Detective Connor's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "I've seen the photos, Mr. Corleone. I've also spoken with Dr. Chen's colleagues at the hospital. They described her as stable, dedicated, and excited about her pregnancy. This doesn't look like a woman who would just run away." The implication hit him like a sledgehammer. "You think something happened to her?" "I think a brilliant surgeon with everything to live for doesn't usually vanish without a trace, unless she's either running from something terrible or someone made sure she couldn't be found. As Detective Connor's words sank in, Ethan realized that his nightmare was just beginning. Because somewhere out there, Isabella was either in danger, or she was planning something that would make his public humiliation look like a gentle breeze before the hurricane. The plot just took a massive turn. What do you think happened to Isabella? Did she run, or is something darker at play? Let me know your theories in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button because this story is about to get absolutely wild. The next 72 hours became Ethan's personal hell. Scarlett's interview aired on national television, and it was worse than Ethan's darkest nightmare. She sat there in a designer dress he'd bought her, tears streaming down her face as she painted herself as the victim of a controlling, emotionally unavailable husband who never appreciated his devoted wife. But the real knife twist came at the end. I just hope Isabella and the baby are safe. I never meant for any of this to happen. Ethan told me his marriage was already over, that they were getting divorced after the baby was born. I would never have gotten involved if I'd known. Lies. All of it. Ethan had never said his marriage was over. He'd never mentioned divorce. Scarlett had known exactly what she was doing, and now she was rewriting history to save her own reputation while Isabella was still missing. His phone rang. The caller ID made his stomach drop. Mom. Ethan Michael Corleone. His mother's voice could have frozen lava. I have been calling you for 3 days. 3 days while my daughter-in-law and my grandchild are missing, and you're too busy with your little girlfriend to answer your phone? Mom, Don't you mom me. I raised you better than this. Isabella is the best thing that ever happened to you, and you threw her away for some gold digger who's already selling you out on television. Your father would be ashamed. The line went dead. Even his own mother had chosen Isabella over him. By Thursday, the media circus had consumed everything. Protesters gathered outside Corleone Tech's headquarters with signs reading "Find Isabella" and "Justice for Pregnant Women." The company's stock had dropped 18%. 3 major clients had pulled their contracts. But it was Detective Connor's visit that afternoon that truly shattered what remained of Ethan's composure. "We found something," she said, placing an evidence bag on his desk. Inside was Isabella's wedding ring, the 3-carat diamond he'd custom designed for their engagement. "Where?" His voice barely worked. "In a dumpster behind Chicago General Hospital, along with this." Another evidence bag, Isabella's hospital ID badge, cut in half. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Isabella had thrown away their marriage and cut ties with her old life in the most deliberate way possible. But why at the hospital? Why would her colleagues find it? "There's something else," Detective Connor continued. "We've been reviewing Dr. Chen's recent activities. She made some interesting purchases in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. A new laptop, paid for in cash, multiple prepaid credit cards. She also had several meetings with a private investigator named Jack Reacher." Ethan's blood turned to ice. A private investigator? Why would she? "That's what we're trying to determine. But Mr. Corleone, I have to ask, in the months before your wife disappeared, did she ever seem suspicious of your activities? Did she ask unusual questions about your schedule, your whereabouts?" The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Isabella's casual questions about his business trips, the way she'd started doing her own laundry, never asking him to pick up his dry cleaning anymore, how she'd stopped suggesting dinner plans, as if she already knew he wouldn't be available. She'd known about Scarlett long before that night at the Ritz-Carlton. "She was investigating me," Ethan whispered. "A woman doesn't hire a private investigator unless she's planning her next move very carefully. The question is, what did she find out, and what is she planning to do with that information?" That evening, alone in his empty penthouse, Ethan found himself in Isabella's home office for the first time since she'd disappeared. Her medical journals were gone, but her personal laptop remained password protected, of course. Isabella was too smart to leave anything discoverable. But as he sat in her chair, surrounded by photos of their happier times, he noticed something that made his heart stop. On her desk calendar, circled in red ink, was yesterday's date. Next to it, in Isabella's precise handwriting, were 2 words, Phase 2. Ethan's hands trembled as he stared at those words. Whatever Isabella was planning, her disappearance was just the beginning. And as his phone buzzed with another call from a reporter wanting a statement, he realized with growing terror that he had no idea what his brilliant, methodical wife was capable of when pushed to her absolute limit. The game was just getting started, and Ethan was already 3 moves behind. Isabella is playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. What do you think Phase 2 could be? Drop your wildest theories in the comments. I love reading your predictions. And make sure you're subscribed because this psychological thriller is about to reach levels you won't believe. 7 days after Isabella's disappearance, Ethan's entire world imploded in a way he never saw coming. He was in an emergency board meeting, trying to salvage what remained of Corleone Tech's reputation, when his assistant Rebecca burst through the conference room doors. Her face was ghostly white, and her hands were shaking as she held up her phone. "Sir, you need to see this, right now." The video had been uploaded to YouTube 30 minutes earlier. The title made Ethan's vision blur. The Truth About Ethan Corleone, a message from Isabella Chen. It already had 50,000 views and climbing. Isabella appeared on screen sitting in what looked like a comfortable hotel room, her hands folded over her swollen belly. She looked radiant, healthier and more beautiful than she'd been in months. Her voice was calm, steady, and absolutely devastating. "Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Isabella Chen, and I'm the supposedly missing wife of tech billionaire Ethan Corleone. I want you to know that I'm safe, my baby is healthy, and I chose to disappear because I discovered something that changed everything." Ethan's board members stared at the screen in stunned silence as Isabella continued. "For the past 6 months, my husband has been embezzling money from Corleone Tech's charitable foundation, the same foundation that provides medical care for underprivileged children. While he was having an affair with his employee Scarlett Robinson, he was also stealing from sick children to fund their lavish lifestyle. Hotel suites, jewelry, expensive vacations, all paid for with money meant to save young lives." The room erupted. Board members started shouting. Ethan's vision tunneled as Isabella's words continued to pour from the screen like acid. "I have bank records, receipts, email communications, and recorded phone calls proving that Ethan Corleone has stolen over $2 million from the Chen Corleone Children's Medical Foundation, money that was supposed to buy life-saving equipment for pediatric hospitals across the country. But she wasn't finished. Not even close. The private investigator I hired also uncovered something else. Scarlett Robinson isn't just Ethan's mistress. She's been working with him to embezzle the money. She helped him set up shell companies and fake vendor accounts. They've been planning this theft for over a year, long before their affair became physical." Ethan's phone exploded with notifications, news alerts, missed calls, text messages. But one text from an unknown number made his blood freeze. "You chose her over me and our child. Now the world will see what kind of man you really are. This is just the beginning." The video continued with Isabella's final devastating blow. "I'm releasing this information because those children deserve justice, and because I want everyone to know that I didn't disappear because I was heartbroken over my husband's affair. I disappeared because I was gathering evidence to bring down a criminal who happens to be the father of my child." As Isabella's image faded from the screen, Ethan realized with crystal clarity that his brilliant, methodical, absolutely ruthless wife had orchestrated the most perfect revenge in corporate history. She hadn't just left him, she'd destroyed him. Within an hour, FBI agents were seizing computers from Corleone Tech. The IRS had frozen the company's assets. Scarlett was arrested at her apartment, screaming about how Ethan had forced her to help him, how she was just another victim. But as Ethan sat in his empty office, watching his empire crumble in real time, one terrifying thought consumed him. If Isabella could do all this while pregnant and in hiding, what was she planning for Phase 3? His phone rang. Detective Connor's voice was ice cold. "Mr. Corleone, you need to turn yourself in. Now. And just so you know, Dr. Chen isn't just brilliant. She's been working with the FBI for the past month. Every piece of evidence she gathered is completely admissible in court. The hunter had become the hunted." and Ethan was beginning to understand that Isabella Chen Corleone was the most dangerous opponent he'd ever faced. Whoa! Isabella just dropped the ultimate bombshell. Did you see that twist coming? What do you think she has planned next? Let me know in the comments and smash that subscribe button because this revenge story is about to reach its explosive climax. 3 weeks later, Ethan Corleone sat in a federal holding cell, his billion-dollar empire reduced to ashes and legal fees. The man who once commanded boardrooms and bent industries to his will now wore an orange jumpsuit and shared a concrete box with a drug dealer named Tommy, who snored like a freight train. But the physical imprisonment was nothing compared to the psychological torture Isabella had crafted for him. Every day brought a new revelation, a new piece of evidence that she'd meticulously gathered while he'd been too blinded by lust to notice. Bank records showing how Scarlett had helped him siphon money from the Children's Foundation. Audio recordings of their conversations about covering their tracks. Even photographs of them celebrating their successful business venture with champagne that cost more than most families made in a month. The most devastating evidence was a recording from their anniversary dinner last year, the one where Ethan had promised Isabella he'd never let work come between them again, that she and their future family were his top priority. While he'd been making those vows, he'd already started stealing from sick children to fund his affair. Scarlett had turned state's evidence within 48 hours of her arrest, throwing Ethan under the bus so fast it left skid marks. Her tearful testimony painted him as a manipulative mastermind who'd seduced her into helping with his crimes. The woman he'd chosen over his devoted wife was now claiming he'd threaten her job, her career, her very safety if she didn't comply with his illegal schemes. "She's lying," Ethan screamed at his lawyer during their daily meeting. "She came up with half of those ideas herself. She's the one who suggested the shell companies." Attorney David Mills adjusted his glasses warily. "Mr. Corleone, it doesn't matter what you say now. Miss Robinson has documentation, text messages, even a recorded phone call where you explicitly tell her that what Isabella doesn't know won't hurt her. The jury is going to see a powerful CEO manipulating a younger employee into criminal activity." But the cruelest twist of all was that Isabella remained completely invisible. Her video confession had been uploaded from an untraceable account. The FBI knew how to contact her. She was their star witness, but she'd made it clear she wanted zero direct communication with Ethan until their child was born. Every night in his cell, Ethan was haunted by the same devastating realization. Isabella hadn't just disappeared to escape him. She'd disappeared to become someone he couldn't reach, couldn't manipulate, couldn't charm his way back to. She'd transformed from his devoted wife into an untouchable force of justice. The newspapers were calling her the ghost witness, the brilliant surgeon who'd vanished to bring down her corrupt husband. Support groups for betrayed spouses were holding rallies in her honor. A best-selling author had already announced plans for a book about her story. Meanwhile, Ethan's own mother hadn't spoken to him since his arrest. His friends had evaporated the moment the FBI started investigating. Even his own company's employees were wearing Justice for Isabella pins to work. The final blow came when Mills delivered the prosecution's latest offer during their Thursday meeting. "They want 40 years, Ethan. 40 years for embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. The Children's Foundation is demanding full restitution plus punitive damages. Your assets have been frozen. Your penthouse is being sold to pay legal fees." "What about Isabella? What does she get out of this?" Mills looked at him with something approaching pity. "She gets to raise your child knowing she brought a criminal to justice. She gets to rebuild her life without the man who betrayed everything she stood for. And Mr. Corleone, she gets to sleep at night knowing she protected other families from the same devastation you brought to yours." As Ethan lay on his narrow cot that night, staring at the concrete ceiling, one thought tormented him above all others. Isabella was out there somewhere, carrying his child, building a new life completely free from his influence. She'd become everything he'd never been: honorable, selfless, unbreakable. And the most terrifying part was that he was finally beginning to understand exactly what he'd lost. The woman he'd discarded like yesterday's newspaper was the only person who'd ever truly loved him. And now she is gone forever. Ethan's world has completely collapsed. Do you think he deserves what's happening to him, or has Isabella gone too far? Share your thoughts below. I love hearing different perspectives on justice and revenge. And don't forget to subscribe because the final chapters of this incredible story are going to leave you speechless. 6 months into his imprisonment, something inside Ethan Corleone finally broke open, and for the first time in his adult life, it wasn't his pride or his anger. It was his heart. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning when his cellmate Tommy received a letter from his 8-year-old daughter. As the hardened drug dealer wept over crayon drawings and misspelled words of love, Ethan realized with crushing clarity that somewhere out there, Isabella was carrying his child, a son or daughter who would grow up knowing their father as a criminal, not a hero. "You got kids?" Tommy asked, wiping his eyes with the back of his tattooed hand. "I'm about to," Ethan whispered. "If my wife doesn't hate me too much, let me be part of their life." Tommy laughed bitterly. "Brother, hate ain't the problem. The problem is when they stop caring enough to hate you. That's when you know you really lost them." That night, Ethan sat down with a pen and paper for the first time since his arrest. Not to draft legal documents or plot appeals, but to write a letter to the woman he'd destroyed. "Isabella, I know you'll probably never read this, but I need to write it anyway. Not because I think it will change anything, but because for the first time in my life, I understand what I actually lost. I lost the woman who stayed up all night when I had pneumonia, even though she'd just worked a 16-hour surgery. I lost the person who believed I could be better than I was, who saw something in me that apparently didn't actually exist. I lost the only human being who ever loved me for who I was, not what I could give them. You were right about everything. About Scarlett, about the money, about who I'd become. You were right to leave, right to expose me, right to protect our child from the man I turned into. I'm not writing this to ask for forgiveness. I'm writing this because I want you to know that sitting in this cell, I finally understand what you tried to tell me for months, that we had something real, something precious, and I traded it for nothing. I hope our child has your courage, your integrity, your brilliant mind. I hope they never have to be ashamed of having me as a father, because I'm going to spend whatever years I have left trying to become worthy of that title. I love you, Isabella." I should have said it more when it mattered. Ethan, he gave the letter to Mills, not expecting it to be delivered. But 3 days later, something miraculous happened. Isabella called the prison. "This is a collect call from Isabella Chen. Will you accept the charges?" Ethan's hands shook so violently he could barely hold the phone. "Isabella?" Her voice was different, stronger, more confident. "Hello, Ethan." "Oh God, Isabella, I'm so sorry. Stop." Her tone wasn't angry, just tired. "I didn't call to hear apologies. I called because I wanted you to know that our daughter was born last week." "Daughter?" He had a daughter. Are you both okay?" "We're perfect. She's healthy, beautiful, and she has your stubborn chin." There was something almost like warmth in Isabella's voice. "I named her Sophia. Sophia Chen. I thought about giving her your last name, but I haven't earned it." Ethan's throat felt raw. "Isabella, what can I do? How can I?" "You can get help, Ethan. There's a counselor here at the prison named Dr. Patricia Williams. She specializes in helping people understand how they hurt the people they love. Mills can arrange for you to see her." For a moment, Ethan couldn't speak. Even now, even after everything he'd done, Isabella was trying to help him become a better man. "Why?" he finally managed. "Why would you care what happens to me?" Isabella's answer changed everything. "Because Sophia is going to ask me about her father someday, and I want to be able to tell her that when he finally understood what he'd done wrong, he spent the rest of his life trying to make it right." The phone call lasted only 5 more minutes, but when it ended, Ethan Corleone began the hardest work of his life, not building a business empire, but rebuilding his soul. For the first time since his arrest, he had hope. Not hope for freedom, or for Isabella's forgiveness, or for getting his old life back. Hope that maybe he could become the kind of man his daughter could be proud of. Finally, some light in the darkness. Do you think people can truly change? or is Ethan too far gone? Let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed because the finale of this emotional journey is going to be absolutely incredible. 2 years later, the man who walked into the Chicago federal courthouse for his final sentencing hearing was nothing like the arrogant billionaire who'd been arrested in handcuffs. Ethan Corleone had lost 60 pounds, gained lines around his eyes from countless nights of real soul-searching, and carried himself with a humility that his former associates wouldn't have recognized. Dr. Patricia Williams had been brutal in their sessions, forcing him to confront not just what he'd done, but why he'd been capable of such betrayal. The therapy had been like emotional surgery, cutting away layers of entitlement, narcissism, and fear that had been building since childhood. "You didn't just steal money, Ethan," she'd told him during one particularly difficult session. "You stole from your wife's trust, from children's futures, from your own integrity. The question is, who do you want to be when you walk out of this prison?" The answer had become his obsession. During his incarceration, Ethan had done something unprecedented. He'd used his business knowledge to help fellow inmates. He'd taught financial literacy classes, helped ex-gang members develop business plans for legitimate enterprises, and worked with a legal aid society to help wrongfully convicted prisoners appeal their cases. The warden had called him the most transformed inmate she'd seen in 20 years. But none of that mattered as much as the letter he'd received 2 weeks ago. "Ethan, Sophia took her first steps yesterday. She walked straight to a photo of you. I keep on her dresser, not because I'm trying to make her love you, but because I believe children deserve to know where they come from, even if it's complicated. I've been following your work in prison through Mills. The literacy program you started has helped 47 inmates earn their GEDs. The microloan fund you convinced 3 of your former board members to establish has helped 18 ex-convicts start legitimate businesses. I'm not telling you this to make you feel better about your situation. I'm telling you because I want you to know that Sophia's father is finally becoming someone worth knowing. We'll be at your sentencing hearing tomorrow, not for you, but for her. She deserves to see her father face the consequences of his actions with dignity. Isabella P.S. The Children's Foundation has been rebuilt. It's now fully funded and helping more kids than ever before. Some good came out of your terrible choices after all. Now, standing before Judge Rachel Green, Ethan felt the weight of every decision he'd made in the past 3 years. The courtroom was packed, not with supporters of his former empire, but with people whose lives had been affected by his crimes and his redemption. In the third row sat Isabella, holding a beautiful toddler with dark curls and eyes that looked exactly like his own. Sophia was playing with a small stuffed elephant, completely unaware that the man at the defendant's table was her father. "Mr. Corleone," Judge Green began, "you've pleaded guilty to embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. The prosecution has recommended a sentence of 15 years, reduced from the original 40 due to your cooperation and the extraordinary rehabilitation efforts you've undertaken while in custody." Ethan stood, his legs steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "Before I pass a sentence, do you have anything to say?" Ethan looked out at the courtroom, at Isabella's composed face, at Sophia's innocent smile, at the faces of people he'd wronged and people he'd helped. "Your Honor, 3 years ago, I was a man who had everything and threw it all away because I didn't understand what truly mattered. I hurt my wife, I stole from children who needed medical care, and I betrayed everyone who trusted me." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "I can't undo those choices, but I can spend the rest of my life proving that prison changed me into the man I should have been all along. I want my daughter to grow up knowing that her father faced his mistakes, accepted his punishment, and dedicated his life to making amends." Judge Green nodded slowly. "Mr. Corleone, I've reviewed your case extensively. Your crimes were serious, but your rehabilitation has been remarkable. I'm sentencing you to 10 years in federal prison with the possibility of parole in 7 years contingent on your continued participation in rehabilitation programs." As the gavel fell, Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced in years: peace. Not because his sentence was lighter than expected, but because he'd finally faced the truth about himself and chosen to become better. As he was led away, he caught Isabella's eye one last time. She wasn't smiling, but there was something in her expression that hadn't been there before. Not forgiveness, exactly, but possibility. And little Sophia, still playing with her stuffed elephant, looked up and waved at the nice man who'd been talking to the important lady in the black robe. It was the first time Ethan had ever seen his daughter acknowledge him. It felt like the beginning of everything. Justice served, but with hope for redemption. What did you think of Ethan's transformation? Do you believe people can truly change? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because next is going to show us what happens when broken families try to heal. 5 years later, on a crisp autumn Saturday in Lincoln Park, a small miracle was taking place. "Higher, Daddy! Push me higher!" Ethan Corleone, thinner now, graying at the temples, wearing a simple sweater and jeans instead of $1,000 suits, gave the swing another gentle push. 7-year-old Sophia Chen shrieked with delight, her dark curls flying in the wind as she soared through the golden afternoon light. "Not too high," came Isabella's voice from the nearby bench where she sat grading medical school exams. "Remember what happened last time someone got overexcited on the swings?" Ethan grinned sheepishly. "In my defense, I didn't know the swing set had a weight limit." Isabella rolled her eyes, but there was warmth in the gesture now. Real warmth. It had taken 3 years of supervised visits, family therapy, and countless careful conversations, but they'd built something new from the ashes of their destroyed marriage, not romance, but partnership in raising their remarkable daughter. "Tell me the story again, Daddy," Sophia called out as she slowed the swing to a stop. "About when you were in timeout for grown-ups." Ethan knelt down to her level. Something he'd learned in therapy was important for honest communication with children. Sophia had known the truth about his imprisonment since she was old enough to understand. Isabella had insisted on honesty, and Ethan had learned to agree with her wisdom. "Well, Daddy made some very bad choices when you were a baby," he said, using the words they'd rehearsed with their family counselor. "I hurt people and took money that wasn't mine. So I had to go to a special place where people learn how to make better choices." "And you learned?" Sophia asked with the intense seriousness that only 7-year-olds could muster. "I'm still learning every day. That's why I work at the center now, helping other people learn too." The Corleone Rehabilitation Center had been Ethan's parole project, a nonprofit organization that provided job training, financial literacy, and counseling services to ex-convicts. Funded by the liquidation of his former assets and staffed by people who believed in second chances, it had become a model program that other cities were trying to replicate. "And that's why Mommy says you're a good man now," Sophia concluded with the logic of a child who'd never known her father as anything but honest and present. Isabella looked up from her papers, catching Ethan's eye. They shared a moment of understanding they'd done this right. They'd given their daughter a father who'd faced his failures and chosen to grow from them. Speaking of the center, Isabella said, "How did the board meeting go yesterday?" "They approved the expansion to Detroit. We'll be able to help 3 times as many families." Ethan sat on the grass beside Sophia's swing, his voice carrying the same passion that had once built business empires, now channeled toward healing instead of conquering. "Dr. Williams thinks we might be able to get federal funding next year." "That's wonderful." Isabella's smile was genuine. "Your father would be proud of what you've built." It was the first time she'd mentioned his father in years. The man who'd taught Ethan that success meant accumulating power over others would indeed be surprised to see his son's greatest achievement was helping people rebuild their lives. "Mommy, are you and Daddy going to get married again?" Sophia asked with the sudden directness that made both adults freeze. Isabella and Ethan exchanged a look. They'd been dreading this question for months. "Sweetheart," Isabella said gently, "sometimes grown-ups can be better friends than they were when they were married. Daddy and I love each other in a special way because we both love you so much, but we're not going to be married again." "But you both love me?" "More than all the stars in the sky," Ethan said, lifting Sophia into his arms. "And you're both my family?" "Forever and always," Isabella confirmed. Sophia considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. "Okay, But next time, Daddy, can we go to the zoo? I want to see the elephants. As they walked back to Isabella's car, she'd driven them to the park. Part of the routine they'd established, Ethan reflected on the strange mathematics of redemption. He'd lost everything: his fortune, his reputation, his marriage, 5 years of his daughter's childhood. But in return, he'd gained something he'd never had before: the knowledge that he was genuinely loved, not for what he could provide, but for who he'd chosen to become. "Thank you," he said quietly to Isabella as she buckled Sophia into her car seat. "For what? For not giving up on the possibility that I could be better, for letting me be her father, he struggled for the right words, for seeing something in me worth saving, even when I couldn't see it myself." Isabella studied his face for a long moment. "You saved yourself, Ethan. I just didn't let you disappear completely while you figured out how." As they drove away, Isabella taking Sophia home, Ethan headed to his modest apartment across town. He realized that this was what happiness actually felt like. Not the manic high of closing billion-dollar deals or the artificial rush of stolen pleasures, but the quiet satisfaction of a life built on truth. His phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Love you, Daddy. See you Wednesday for movie night." Ethan smiled, typing back, "Love you too, Princess. Sweet dreams." For the first time in his adult life, Ethan Corleone was exactly where he belonged, not at the top of some empire, but right in the middle of a messy, imperfect, absolutely beautiful life that he'd earned through the hardest work he'd ever done, the work of becoming worthy of love. And that's how a man who lost everything found what truly mattered. What did you think of this incredible journey of betrayal, justice, and redemption? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing how these stories impact you. And if this story moved you, please share it with someone who might need to hear that it's never too late to change. Don't forget to subscribe to Unbroken Truths for more powerful stories that prove the human spirit can overcome anything. Until next time, remember, even our worst mistakes don't have to define our future. We always have the power to choose who we become next.